On December 15th, Nancy Pelosi held a press conference where she defended the practice of members of Congress trading stock while holding office. Pelosi and her husband have become insanely rich during her time in government. And it's no secret how. Nancy Pelosi is privy to tremendous amounts of information that you are not. She knows which companies are about to take a big hit, which companies are about to see a windfall from government grants and subsidies. And she has quite a bit of control over government regulation that can make or break America's biggest corporations. And yet, when asked why she and her husband are allowed to even buy and sell stock, which is a great question, check out the answer.
Should members of Congress and their spouses be banned from trading individual stocks while serving in Congress?
No, I don't know to the second one. We have a responsibility to report in the stock, on the stock, but I'm not familiar with that 5-month review, but if people aren't reporting, they should be.
Why should they be banned?
Because this is a free market and people, we are a free market economy. They should be able to participate in that.
You want to know what power is? That was power. You can be clearly corrupt, clearly enriching yourself through insider information. And when questioned, you can just get mad and give a total BS answer about free markets. What does any of this have to do with free markets? I mean, is she an idiot or a liar? I don't think she's an idiot. And just walk away. Go home to your mansion without a care in the world. That's what power looks like. Nancy Pelosi has power most people would dream of. And as the saying goes, absolute power corrupts absolutely. According to financial disclosures published by the House, in December alone, Pelosi family's trades included Google and Salesforce calls worth between $500,000 and $1 million in Google. $500,000 and $1 million in Google in a month. Roblox calls optioned, valued between $100,000 and $250,000. $250,000 to $500,000 in chip maker Micron Technology, and between $100,000 and $250,000 of Disney options. That's 1 month of being a Pelosi in this country. Sounds nice, right? While that was happening, the New York Post reported that insiders in Washington were claiming that Pelosi, while owning all that Google stock, was stalling efforts to rein in big tech. I can't imagine why. Insiders say she's slow-walking legislation, including a so-called non-discrimination bill that would put a major dent in tech firms. The proposal would prohibit the practice of the companies giving their own products favorable treatment in search results. Like if Google's selling something and you search for it on Google, it puts Google's product right there at the top. She didn't want to do that, though. You can't rein in big tech while your hubby is buying up hundreds of thousands of dollars, close to $1 million in Google in just a month. You got to cash out first, obviously. You sell the stock and then you can screw with the company. Pelosi has a long history of using inside information to put profit before politics. In 2008, Pelosi and her hubby got in on Visa's initial public offering, the IPO. This was at the same time as a troublesome piece of legislation was coming from Visa, the Credit Card Holders Bill of Rights Act. It was working its way through the House, something to help the little guy out there who Pelosi claims to be a champion for, right? Oh, we want to help the little people. We want to help the people at the bottom pull up. We're Democrats, right? That's what we do. Among other consumer protections, this would end Visa's lucrative swipe fees. Pelosi bought 5,000 shares of Visa at 44 at IPO. The stock price rose to 64 2 days later, up 50%. Credit card legislation never made it to the House floor. CBS reporter Steve Croft confronted Speaker Pelosi about this in 2011, back before Trump, of course, when the media still cared about holding Democrats accountable. Take a listen.
I wanted to ask you why you and your husband, back in March of 2008, accepted and participated in a very large IPO deal from Visa. At a time there was major legislation affecting the credit card companies making its way through the House. And did you consider that to be a conflict of interest?
I don't know what your point is of your question. Is there some point that you want to make with that?
I mean, awful. That's when you get caught. What is the point of your question? Are you trying to say that, like, there's something wrong with, me being corrupt or something? Like, what's the point? I'm Pelosi. You're not. Deal with it. Power. Just insult one of the best journalists this country ever saw. 60 Minutes. Oh, yeah, you're an idiot. Who cares what you think? I'm Pelosi. Get out. End of story. As I mentioned last night, I was forced to sit through CBS's Sunday morning show a couple of days ago. Margaret Brennan there, who ain't much of a host, had a chance to call Pelosi out. There's a lot of heat on Pelosi right now. Even a Democrat senator is trying to put an end to her corrupt ways, make sure Congress can't do the types of things that she does and a lot of others do. Margaret Brennan has this great opportunity, has her right there in front of her, doesn't even ask her about any of this once. In fact, she didn't even ask one single tough question to Nancy Pelosi. All softballs for Nancy. All smiles. Oh, this is going to be easy. According to federal disclosure documents, the Speaker and her husband may be among, listen to this, the world's top stock pickers, with federal disclosure reports indicating they beat the S&P 500 index 2 years in a row by 4.9% in 2019 and by a shocking 14.3% in 2020. Wouldn't you know it that Nancy Pelosi and her husband are among the top stock pickers in the world? They're just so good at it. Paul Pelosi is a real dynamo. He's the best. Nobody's better. I mean, I tell you what, if I had the cash to get in his book, I mean, you know, I can't even imagine how much you need to just to get him to notice you. I'd jump all over Paul Pelosi because you know you're going to make a hell of a lot of money. It's easy to win when you cheat. That's the moral of the story. It's very easy. That's how you get $14,000 refrigerators stocked with $500 worth of gourmet ice cream that you can brag about on national TV to a host that looks like he could eat it all. Democrat Georgia Senator John Ossoff, not somebody we say a lot of nice things about. Far left liberal, but he is the driving force behind a bill that would prohibit members of Congress from holding or trading individual stocks while in elected office. Now, he's the new wave, right? These are the young guys coming in that are seeing all these old corrupt politicians. It pisses them off. I think Ossoff's like 35. His bill may, in fact, require members of Congress to put their financial assets into a blind trust. That's an arrangement in which the financial holdings of a person in an influential position are placed in the control of a fiduciary in order to avoid a possible conflict of interest. It's not unheard of for politicians to take this sort of action. Former President Trump did this just before taking office, and he didn't even have to do it. You know how they screamed about how corrupt he was? He didn't have to do this. He did it anyway, just to do the right thing. Here's Trump's tax attorney in 2017, days before he took office, explaining how Trump intended to separate himself from his business holdings.
Through the trust agreement, he has relinquished leadership and management of the Trump Organization to his sons, Don and Eric, and a longtime Trump executive, Alan Weisselberg. Together, Don, Eric, and Alan will have the authority to manage the Trump Organization and will make decisions for the duration of the presidency without any involvement whatsoever by President-elect Trump.
She made a point of saying the conflict of interest laws on the books at the time did not apply to the president or vice president, something that Congress themselves made clear in 1989. In his case, Trump was not required to set up this blind trust, yet he did it in order to make it clear he had no intention of profiting off the office of the president. And of course he didn't. Unlike so many others, unlike everybody else, Trump actually knew how to make money in the real world, and he made a boatload of it. And being president actually cost him a fortune, which is why it's so pathetic to see everybody coming after him right now. The state of New York, it's so sad to watch. These pathetic little people trying to attack probably the one person that got into politics for the right reasons. The one guy that actually just wanted to do something right and help the country. It cost him a fortune. Everybody else wants to do what Obama did. I'm going to be the president. I'm going to be a millionaire. I'm going to champion black votes all over the country, and then I'm going to move to the whitest places on earth and never see another black person again. That's Obama for you. And they applaud him, and they trash Trump. How ass backwards this country is. The idea that members of Congress should not trade stocks while in office is one of the rare moments when members of both parties can actually agree on it. In reality, it's really just the voters of both parties. A Convention of States action poll conducted by the Trafalgar Group found 78% Republicans, 70 Democrats, 80 independents all agree These guys shouldn't be trading stock. They know everything before we do. They know it before we do. Anybody that trades a lot of stock, it's all about when you figure something out. If you know early, you're in, you're good. You're going to be rich. If you know first, you're going to win. They're always going to win. The Stock Act, passed in 2012, makes it illegal for members of Congress and their families to profit from inside information, requires lawmakers to report stock trades to Congress within 45 days. Yet, according to Peter Schweizer, who's written some fantastic books about all this, the president of the Government Accountability Institute, the Stock Act, of course, because it's written by Congress, is not cutting it at all.
The Stock Act is enforced by the Department of Justice and the Securities and Exchange Commission. And where do they get their funding? They get their funding from Congress, which is the very body that they are supposed to be regulating. So the Stock Act is good, but I think we need to do a whole lot better. If you're very sophisticated about this, you're going to be able to get away with it and have enough plausible deniability so that you're not going to be held into account.
Sure. There's always going to be a way out. Even if we go a step further, what do you think they're going to do? They're just going to tell their buddy, hey, Mark, buy up all this. Hold it. And then when I get out of here, you're just going to dump it back to me. You're going to be able to get away with it no matter what. The 2020 Financial Disclosure Report of congressional members reveals the wealthiest 15 members of Congress worth $1.3 billion, half of Congress as well. People like Scott there, Rick Scott on the left, though, he made his money in the private sector. He did in the hospital business in Florida, I believe. So, not all of it is corrupt. A lot of it is, though. To bring this full circle on that list, Pelosi and her corrupt husband come in at number 15. In reality, though, it's a bipartisan problem. We just are picking on Pelosi because she's so nakedly corrupt. As she knows, the liberal media will never turn on her. I hope that didn't just make you think of Pelosi naked. Unless she starts, of course, groping women and gets Me Too'd, and then all bets are off. Maybe they will take her down. But until then, she knows she owns the corporate media. She owns the country. She's the queen. She does whatever. You ask her a question about it, she basically just flips you the bird and walks off. North Carolina Senator Richard Burr and his brother are being investigated by the Securities and Exchange Commission over whether they violated law by selling stocks based on information that was not available to the public and that Burr had obtained through his elected position. From Newsweek, Burr allegedly sold $1.65 million in stock on February 13, 2020, after, of course, lawmakers were briefed on an emerging global health crisis that would be COVID-19. Burr has defended the sale and said he based his decision on publicly available information at the time. Yeah, right, Richard. Yeah, right. The point is, these people that run this country, like I said, get a first look at everything. And they're connected to everyone. They know all the CEOs. They know when everything's about to happen. They know the game way before you'll ever have a chance. You're the one buying the stock you think is hot, and it's because of people like them. You say, oh, this is a great stock, and it goes down when you buy it. That's how it happens. Because a whole bunch of people knew 2 weeks. When you thought it was a hot little tip, they knew 2 weeks ago. And these people are permitted to engage in the markets. The fact that they are is total BS. We can all see it. It's really time Congress acts on it. And